Welcome back to the Elise Surkov podcast, where we help women in perimenopause and menopause thrive unapologetically from the inside out. All right, let's get into part 3 of our little hormone series here, where we are talking about the big T, testosterone. I feel like so many women are scared about testosterone because when we hear the word hormone testosterone, we think of being bulky and manly and hairy and acne, and you're not wrong. But testosterone is such an important hormone in the female body. So we're looking at this as, think of it as the sex drive and strength hormone. And the problem with this hormone is it often gets overshadowed by estrogen and progesterone. Those twin sisters just love to kind of drive all of the dysregulation when it comes to perimenopause. But trust me when I say testosterone falls. I have recently, at the time of this recording, which is October 1st, I have doubled my testosterone. And whew, let me tell you, I have had this swelling that has come along with it. And I'll talk about that in another episode. But it is so important to make sure that we have a functioning level of testosterone in the body. I know for me, I knew that my testosterone tanked when I just felt extremely reactive. So what is the role of testosterone in the body? First of all, it's going to build and maintain lean body mass, which really supports metabolism and metabolic function. So when I hear women and even men complaining about, gaining weight really easily, or maybe they've done a lot of yo-yo dieting and so they're like a skinny fat, they have more of an issue of being under muscled than over fat. I know that this is coming from likely a lack of testosterone and also just we don't have a lot of lean tissue in our body. Okay. But testosterone is also going to fuel your sex drive, motivation, and confidence. So for me, that motivation just tanked. I don't rely on motivation, but I know what it feels like when I feel like I have zero capacity. That's the only way I could describe it. And I knew my testosterone had tanked because I just kept saying to Albert, I have zero capacity. Like I can't do it. And if I wasn't as disciplined and consistent in all my behaviors that I've like adapted over the last 20, 30 years, 40 years of like exercise and nutrition, I probably would have stopped going to the gym, stopped dialing in my nutrition, all those things. All right. So motivation, confidence also is going to protect your bones, your joints, and contributes to energy level and mental clarity. So how many women are complaining that they have lack of energy? This is a huge one for us, especially in perimenopause and menopause. We are just, it's kind of multifactorial, right? We're in a different stage of life. Maybe we are working longer hours because we don't have kids around anymore, whatever it is. And we start to feel like I'm too old for this. This is kind of where that lack of testosterone tends to happen. In perimenopause, it's gonna gradually start to decline. So you will be experiencing a decline in testosterone, whether you notice it or not. It's gonna happen. But like I said, it is often overshadowed by estrogen and progesterone. But this is having like quite the effect on women. When we feel that low level of testosterone, you're going to feel super fatigued, loss of motivation, and it's going to feel super hard to maintain weight. So I always say like this habits versus hormones, which is more important. The truth is they're both very important, but it's going to make it harder to optimize weight loss. So this is the analogy I like to use. If you're a parent out there, then chances are at some point you had like a sleepless night, right? So like think about when you had a newborn and you maybe were trying to lose the baby weight, but my gosh, you were so tired and you weren't sleeping. So not sleeping well made it harder to lose weight. But that doesn't mean like it doesn't mean that like correlation is not causation. So just because it's correlated doesn't mean it causes it. So we can't say that lack of sleep causes weight gain, but lack of sleep is going to make it harder to potentially make better choices in the kitchen when your body's craving energy, which then makes gaining weight easier and losing weight harder. So there's a correlation there. So when we optimize hormonal function, weight loss becomes more manageable. That's not to say that jumping on hormone therapy is going to then be the answer to weight loss. It's going to be the answer to optimizing hormonal function, which is going to make it clearer and give you the energy, the confidence, and the motivation to hit weight loss a little bit easier, if that makes sense. Okay. So when we are low in testosterone, you're going to experience a loss of muscle. So I can tell in men when we are losing testosterone, because men will get that belly as well, and they will just look like the dad bod, if you want to say, but just that like more accumulation of fat. And the same thing in women. More women are coming into the program under muscled, and it's like their weight is somewhat good, but they're not happy with their composition. So loss of muscle, fatigue, low libido. By the way, if you're listening and you're like, yeah, that's just normal. I mean, it is common, but it is not normal. You don't have to go the rest of your life without a sex drive. All right. So low libido, brain fog, and slow recovery. Slow recovery was another big sign for me that I needed more testosterone in my body. And then excess testosterone, which doesn't typically happen unless you are either supplementing on HRT or struggling with PCOS, but we're going to see an increase in acne, hair thinning, irritability, and potentially abdominal fat. So when I first started testosterone, I started on a bit of a higher dose, and I had a lot of acne like immediately. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not comfortable with this. I just regulated hormonal acne from being estrogen dominant. And so we took that down. Now, the one thing I will say that if you are exploring HRT, the best methods of testosterone, in my opinion, is injections or topical cream. I would highly avoid pellets. And the reason is that when women are coming in on TRT and they are on the pellets, it is harder to titrate. So we have a lot of women coming into the program that are like jacked on testosterone because they cannot titrate it. And then they've got to wait a few more months in order to regulate that again. All right. So I do not recommend pellets. If you've been listening for a while, you'll know that as well. In terms of like what to do if you're someone that's like, I don't know what my testosterone is, but like at some point it's going to, go down. One big thing that you can really do is get to the fucking gym and strength train 2 to 3 days a week. Really will help boost your natural testosterone and protect your metabolism. On top of that, making sure that you're optimizing protein intake for anywhere. I say the minimum is 100 grams per day. For most women, when we look at like 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight, it is just not realistic. And I'm someone who's going to admit that that's kind of what I was preaching for years as a macro coach. But in my clinical like studies, like when we look with women in our program, just like hitting that protein of like 150, 160 grams is just not realistic. So I say like a minimum 100. And honestly, if someone's hitting 120 grams of protein versus like 130, in my opinion, it's pretty negligible. So like 100 grams minimum per day, but like 120 is about average, depending on how many calories you're taking in. And then prioritize recovery. So sleep, stress reduction. Testosterone thrives in that repair state, in the rest and digest state. So making sure that you are really paying attention to that. I feel like one of the things I've said consistently across the board is now is the time that you really have to nail down stress management and sleep quality. All right. And then also exploring TRT, hormone replacement therapy, working with a healthcare provider. Now, I had someone reach out to me on Instagram and say, how do I find hormone therapy, because I don't know or have anyone that can prescribe it to me. So your best bet is first to go to your doctor. If your doctor is like, nope, not interested, and you do not know where to go, the next place you can go to is to your local compounding pharmacy. Ask at the pharmacy, which doctor do you recommend who's making all the referrals for hormone replacement therapy? They'll tell you like 3 or 4 doctors. Typically they'll have their top 2 or 3 of who they recommend. And then you can just call them directly. All right. Aside from that, other healthcare providers can prescribe HRT. So depending on where you're located, but primary care physicians could include a naturopath or a functional a functional medicine doctor can do it as well. So you're going to have to get a little bit creative if your doctor won't prescribe it. I know my doctor was not crazy about it. And so I went to another doctor. So remember that at the end of the day, you absolutely have the ability to advocate for yourself. You should. If you need more help on this, go ahead and shoot me a DM on Instagram and just tell me that you were listening to the podcast on testosterone, so I have an idea what you're talking about. Sometimes I get random messages like, tell me more about what you said. And I'm like, I have no fucking idea what I said 5 minutes ago. So what are you referring to? So do me a solid and just let me know. Hey, Elise, when you were talking about testosterone and trying to find a healthcare provider, I was really struggling. So I hope that this was easily digestible for you and that it was helpful. Testosterone is a hormone that I love being on. I will be on it forever, but titrating it can be a little bit tricky. And if you are struggling with inflammation, then stay tuned. I will record a podcast all about that. I'm actually working on a freebie right now because when I polled my audience on Instagram, what are you struggling with? It seems like a lot of us are struggling with inflammation and puffiness and all the things, especially when titrating HRT. So let me know how this lands if this was helpful, and I will see you on the next one.